In this tutorial, we'll be looking at a cowl neck camisole dress. So first of all, we'll draft the bodice and placing my shoulder line, and on it I'm placing 2.75 inches width and 2.75 depth, and that's for my neckline, and I'm connecting the dot. Going back to my shoulder line, I am placing a half of my shoulder measurement, and at that point I'll go down with 1 inch, and I'm connecting that to meet the neck width. From my shoulder slope, I am placing a half of my shoulder measurement again, getting the midpoint of that. I'll simply connect the shoulder slope to the 8 inches downwards, and that becomes my chest line. At the midpoint there, I am going inwards with ½ inch, and I'm placing a quarter of my bust circumference, and then using the cuff part of my pattern master, I'll connect my shoulder slope through the ½ inch at the midpoint to my bust circumference. From my shoulder line again, I'm placing 16 inches from my half length, and I will draw an horizontal line there. On that line, which is my waistline, I am placing a quarter of my waist circumference. And from my waistline, I simply measured 9 inches downwards, and on that line I place a quarter of my hip circumference. From my shoulder line again, I am measuring the length of the gown, and I'll be using the length of the scraper. On the gown length, I am placing a quarter of my hip circumference again, and I'll connect that to meet the hip line. Note the way I am using my pattern master. From the hip line, I'm connecting it to meet the waist circumference, and from the bust, I'll connect it to meet the waist circumference, and I'm simply blending that sharp spot out. So at this point, I am adding the seam allowance of 1 inch, simply following the contour that I have at the side, and then I'll connect the dot and extend my chest line. So when I'm done with that, I'll simply measure 5 inches from my chest line upwards. At that point, I am drawing an horizontal line because this camisole dress will be more of an off shoulder. So at that point, I'll measure ½ inch from that new neckline to meet the same allowance, and then I'll be extending the chest line to meet the center front. Okay, at that point I'll fold it in because I'll be cutting the back starting from my chest line. I place that on a new paper, and I'm simply tracing out the chest line, alright, and adding ½ inch because we'll need that to turn the facing, and then I will extend that ½ inch to meet the same allowance I have at the side there, and then simply cut this out. After that, I'll set aside the front panel, and then at the chest line there, I am folding in about ½ inch like you will fold a dart. That's so it will not gape at the back. So I'll pin that and set the back panel aside. On the front panel again, I am slashing the chest line. I'll leave a little at the side there, okay? And then bring in a new paper and place this because we'll be spreading it, okay? So now you need to make the down part of it to align to the edge of the paper and pin it down. You can use a sellotape at this point. I'll be spreading it with about 4 inches and then pin that down, extending the neckline to meet the center front, okay, like so. And at that point I'll be folding it in because that part I will need to create a facing, okay. So creating a facing, I just folded it in, and then I'll need to trim out the edge so it will align, and then cut out at the arm curve there to be the same thing. So bring it out again. This is the shape I have, and because I want the facing to stop at about 2 inches below the chest line, I am measuring that 2 inches, and then I'll connect it to meet about 2 inches, above the neckline, and cut it out. So that will be the facing because it will be a cut together, and this is what we have. I'll be using the satin fabric, and I've placed it on the fabric, and I'm simply cutting out what I have on my pattern on the fabric. So that's for the front, and I'm doing the same thing for the back panel, using the back pattern to cut out on the fabric. So now I am making a facing for the back here, and I'm simply placing the back pattern on a folded fabric like so, and cutting it out about 3 inches downwards and notching the midpoint, which will become very handy. So for the straps, I am cutting it diagonally, okay, about 2 inches. So I'll make the strips about 2 inches wide, and I'll be using about 15 inches. Okay, so now I'm cutting this out, and I will need to make two of this. Making two of this, so we'll first of all prepare the strips, and I'm using this method of sewing the thread inwards. The thread will have to go in between to help me pull it out, okay, easier, and then I'll take it to the machine and sew out 1/2 inch. You can choose to trim out the 1/2 inch, but I wanted to add some flesh to the straps, so I'm pulling it, and while I'm tucking the other end, just watch me do it, and I'll pull it out. Trimming out the edges, I'll measure about 15 inches because of course the fabric has stretched a little. I took out 15 inches, and I make two strips like I said. So we are sewing now, and then I am bringing, making sure the facing at lines at the chest line, you know at the arm curve, and I'm notching the midpoint and bringing in the strip. Watch the way I am bringing it out. So I'll pin this, and I'll take it to the machine and sew out 1/2 inch. I'm doing the same thing to the other side, okay, pinning it down, and I'll notch the midpoint, so I'll be sure of where the strip comes in, and then I'll pin it down, take it to the machine, and you use 1/2 inch to sew that part. Sewing that part, look at what I have, and I'll trim out a little of it, so I'll be left with about 1/4 inch. Okay, notch that part so it will come out well. So then I pull this strip like so, okay, and then I'll take it to the machine and top stitch. After top stitching it, okay, I'm giving it a good press, I am done with the front. So I'll simply bring in the back panel at this point, and I'm notching the midpoint of it. Because I'll be turning it with a facing, I like to notch the midpoint so it will be easy for me to align the facing. So I'll be measuring 3 inches, okay, inwards, and notch that part. That's the spot I want the strip to come. So you're simply making sure your strip on the front panel is directed to that spot straight. Just be sure so it won't bend, all right, out on the other side or twist. So you do the same thing to the other side. At this point, I'll bring in the facing and make sure the midpoint align. Now I'll sew it from that midpoint to this edge, and the midpoint to the other edge. When I'm done with that and top stitch and giving it a good press, I'll take out my side seams. Alright, take it to the machine, take out my side seams, At the edge there, I'll simply double fold. You can simply double fold, but I'll be using the bias for this. So this is what it looks like. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you.